struggling with your mental health? Have you been looking for ways that would help you? Did you ever think about returning to school as an option? You might be surprised that that actually is becoming a solution for a lot of people. These wellness education centers are actually transforming the lives of over 90% of the attendees. And today, I have a very special guest. Join me and mental health educator Candace Singh as we explore the question, how is wellness education empowering individuals to manage their mental health effectively? Let's dive right in. Welcome. I'm so excited to be back, and I'm so excited to have our guest. Welcome to another episode of the Wellness Education Network. And today we are here with an adult educator who is a facilitator in the wellness education space. That is Candace Singh. Welcome, Candace. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me, Jamie.
Thank you. It's always a privilege to have you on here. You are so knowledgeable. It's great to hear from you. And I can't wait for our audience to get to know a little bit more of the information you provide. Thank you. It's an honor for us.
Thank you. It's an honor for me as well.
So you are an adult educator. How did that come to be?
Yeah. So I know it's kind of strange, right? An adult educator. Why not call myself a teacher? I actually started in the nonprofit sector as well, doing things with the community. Just as an admin, I learned a little bit more about the field, discovered this thing called facilitation, which truthfully, the facilitator that we had was having a lot of fun and I wanted to have fun too. I got curious and asked if I could teach some classes here and there, or at least try to. And that kickstarted it. I fell in love with it. So I guess I could say I was inspired by another educator to become one. I had two fairy god educators, I will call them. I had two people in my life that I really looked up to. I just had to ask them a few questions and they kind of guided me in that way. I ended up doing my master's of education and here I am following that path and pursuing it and becoming, I guess, a master of it.
So just for the audience, like anyone who doesn't know what facilitation is or what a facilitator is, can you describe that? What's the difference between that and a teacher?
Being a facilitator, my role is to take a step back, but make things easier. The word facilitate comes from making things easier. So I kind of make the learning process a little bit easier. The idea around adult education and facilitation is that adults come with their own lived experience, their own knowledge. They are well capable of doing things. And what I do is I curate an experience around what they already know. I just make it a little bit easier to have those questions and to explore certain topics. And I bring that to a classroom space. Whereas as a teacher, I'm kind of telling people what they need to know and how they need to know it versus me sitting in the back as a facilitator saying, hey, have you thought about this? Okay, let's explore that together.
So if I understand this correctly, it seems like a teacher has been filled with knowledge and is imparting that knowledge to students. And a facilitator is doing something more empowering, which is saying, you have the knowledge. I'm going to bring it out from you because you guys have the experience. You guys have the knowledge. I'm not here to tell you how to live, especially within the wellness education space. You're more apt to say, what are some of the choices that you would like? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I think you got it kind of bang on. The idea is that we have no limitations as an adult educator or facilitator. I am catering my style to the students that are in the class space. In fact, that I can often go back between calling them students versus participants because I think participants really captures that. They're participating in the learning experience. Whereas like teaching, I think there's a framework and expectations that need to be met and guidelines. I have a little bit more liberty to go with the flow and see what the group brings and what they have to offer. I really like it for that because I end up learning a lot in the experience as well. And I get a chance to reflect that in future groups too. I find it ends up being a space of storytelling, a space of collective sharing. It ends up being almost therapeutic. It's really a great experience for everyone that's in it.
As a facilitator, how do you prepare for the spontaneity of the classroom?
So I definitely think you have to think on your toes quite a bit. You get used to it. Going back to the lived experience pieces, I think it's really important to perspective take as a facilitator, just offer the opportunity to see another perspective and remove the rigidity of a classroom space. If we're having a class on anxiety and we start talking a little bit about OCD, we draw connections. What is a connection between anxiety and OCD? What are the similarities so that we can get things back on topic? I think that I have a little bit more creative freedom in that way, and I'm not grading any papers. I'm not giving A pluses, C minuses. Life is the real test. So I think that's the joy in it for me. And now you see why that person was having a lot of fun and I wanted to do it too, right?
Yes, yes. I think that what you're mentioning is that the the flexibility is what you're enjoying. You're able to bring your own flavor. There's a box, but the box is kind of loose and flowing, and you're able to flow with it. And that's what brings you joy within the job, among other things. Am I right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I like the creativity or the openness of this kind of field. So it's really great.
That's fascinating. So, in regards to being an adult educator, why would an adult need to be educated? They finished public school, they finished high school, they may or may not have gone on to college or university. So, why extend into an adult educator?
Well, I'm gonna ask, why not? All right. So I think everything is a learning experience. And I think, aside from like the actual biological benefits of constantly learning, I think it's important to always be learning. It gives us the opportunity to enhance our communication skills, relate with people. Also, it helps you to find out that you're not alone with a lot of things. I work in the mental health field right now, and my adult educator role has taken me into the mental health and wellness field. I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to create connection around something that's so stigmatized typically, something that people don't go to work and talk about, something that people don't even talk about with their families. And I get to facilitate a space that people can be themselves, that people can share their deepest, darkest, weirdest things that they thought were strange and realize that a lot of people are experiencing very similar things. And I get to draw the connection between that and watch it kind of flourish in the classroom space. Learning is always kind of an important thing to do. So why not continue it, right?
So, is there a difference between being an adult educator slash facilitator and being an adult educator slash facilitator within the mental health wellness education space?
There are similarities in the sense that both spaces you have creative freedom. Beforehand, I was in an employment space. I had a very specific topic to teach about, whether that's resumes or cover letters or even the job search strategy, those kinds of things I was teaching or sorry, facilitating I'm using the word teach, but I want to just, kind of go back and forth between facilitating. I think it's easier to say teaching for that kind of stuff because there was the structure. But yes, I'm still facilitating because I get a chance to answer some questions and not stick to the guidelines. The difference is I get to drop my shoulders. I don't know if that resonates with you, but I get to be myself in this space as well, in the mental health space, because I get a chance to share my story alongside others sharing their story and then watch everybody's shoulders drop because we're not being in a framework. We're not performing. It's about being your authentic self. So I think there's a huge difference, but there's also similarities between the two. I just feel like the mental health space has kind of changed my life in that sense and made me doubly passionate about education in the wellness world.
That's really fascinating. So when you say drop your shoulders, I guess what you're saying is that everybody just kind of slowly over time begins to be more comfortable with who they are.
I get a chance to watch it happen. I see people hesitant to have conversations or even ask. I notice the difference in the way that questions are structured. I can give you a funny example. Sometimes people will ask questions on behalf of others, like, what if somebody felt this? Or I'm asking for my neighbor. And then later on, we realize as we start to build those connections, hey, I'm actually really wondering if I'm experiencing this. And that's that kind of drop your shoulders moment. I don't have to be pretending to be something else. I don't have to be walking on eggshells with how I say certain things. I think that happens a lot in the workplace. And that's probably why it happened occasionally in the employment space, because there's rules and it's very performative applying for jobs. I find in the mental health space, there's nothing performative about it. We are living our truth. And myself as a facilitator, I get a chance to allow those truths to be shared with each other and ideally break down the stigma associated with it.
So you talked about breaking down the stigma. What are some ways that you've seen that are affecting, or what are some obstacles that people are having in regards to stigma? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Just starting the conversation is already half the battle. So when we start to draw connections and have those conversations, so I gave you the example of anxiety and OCD. These are words typically associated with many visualizations on the outside. The cool thing is that when you're in that kind of space, you get a chance to see other people and realize that, hey, I wouldn't have looked sideways if I saw this person in the wild. It's interesting that they're sharing this. Maybe it's something that I can share as well. So I think facilitating the conversation is what works. And you'll find that your whole class ends up going with the flow that way. I don't necessarily need to rely on my slides. I think that in itself is experiential. I call myself an experiential educator. That's what I love to do. I learn that way. If you tell me something smells good, it's hard for me to imagine it unless I smell it. Oh, that smells like fresh bread or these kinds of things. So that's an experience. I think bringing that into the classroom and allowing people the opportunity to experience one another's story is the most effective, at least for now, in the mental health space.
Yeah. So I guess what you're saying is in order to break down these barriers or these stigmas, we do have to talk about them. And one way that you do it is by trying to draw out people's stories in regard to their own mental health or their own experience in regards to facing stigma. Is that right?
Yeah. It's just asking questions gently and creating a space or making sure. So another huge part of being an adult educator is making sure I call it like maintenance of the space, right? I'm maintaining the confidentiality and I'm maintaining the safety that people feel in the space, right? If I'm noticing that people aren't sharing as much or that people seem to not be communicating as much, that's a huge indicator of the space I've helped create, right? So yeah, I think it's about facilitating conversation. That's the most effective, especially in a group setting. And you learn so much in like storytelling. I mean, there's a lot to experience in that way, and in that sense, it becomes experiential. So, I mean, I can go on about this forever. About
Well, that's one reason. That's one reason I brought you on as a guest. Let's talk about how we set up a safe space within wellness education. I want to talk about this idea of group norm. Can you expand on that and how that's implemented within the adult education, quote unquote, classroom? Is classroom the right word?
Yeah, I call it the
Yeah.
classroom. I think yes, it's like it's reimagining education. In my opinion, it's like the anti-elementary school and high school kind of vibe. When it comes to group norms, I will speak to the mental health space because this is like the best indicator, or I think probably the best experience that I've had, the most rewarding one. I think when it comes to creating group norms, it's important to not assign it. I don't get to define what a safe space is. You get to define that. So you as a student, as a participant in my space, get to decide that. So what I have learned is most effective is creating the group norms as a group. So what is it that you want? I have some ideas and maybe I'll drop some hints like, hey, how does confidentiality sound? Do you think that it needs to be on this list of group norms? We start to see that kind of flourish where you might even notice very specific things in the classroom setting. I might get, can we limit the smells that we have? I know I'm using the example of like, I want to experience something and using the smell, but that's exactly one of the, I have a really hard time with strong scents. Can we make sure that our group doesn't have that? And that is such a personal thing. So I think that shows we've specifically created a safe space for this person to feel safe and everybody's in agreement with it. And no one's saying, oh, that's weird. Or why do I need to do that? It's almost like, yeah, I'll honor that. Celebrating those norms that we want in the group, you end up realizing that we build stronger connections and those connections create conversation. We really sort of set the stage that way.
Maybe one of the fascinating trends I've seen is that it's built by the participants of that classroom for that period of time. And what I found was that it allowed a space for people to speak in such a way where they wanted to be respected. And it's a very small way for them to set up a boundary
Mhm.
in a space that's already safe for them. And that's what I found one of the most powerful things. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
You're asking about setting boundaries in the classroom space?
I'm using the group norms as a stepping stone into that.
Yeah, I think so. The group norms they're helpful for me because now I kind of get an idea as to what general framework my students are expecting or the participants are expecting. I typically write it down or provide it to the students. If I'm doing a virtual group and we create a set of group norms together, I get a chance to share it with everyone, especially if it's over a series of days that we're going to be meeting. It's almost like a contract that we've created. If someone's not honoring a boundary, I'm not punishing. I'm not going to make you look at the wall or put you in timeout. That's not creating a safe space at all, but it gives me the opportunity to say, hey, remember our group norms? Let's review it together. That sets the tone for the rest of the day. It's a set of guidelines that we all follow and agree to.
What are some other tools that you use within the classroom to make an experiential learning space within that?
So my facilitation style or my education style is experiential in many different ways. I am a very creative person. So I try my best to create visualization. My least favorite classes were lecture style. Workshops even were when people were kind of telling you the fact and seeing lots of slides with lots of information. I would rather have a conversation, ask questions. So I ask a lot of questions in my classroom space. I like to create lots of visuals. I love to use mixed media. I will have students participate with the use of technology. I'll get them to annotate directly onto my slides. It's far more engaging that way. One, I'm making sure that you're paying attention.
Yeah.
I'm making sure you're paying attention, but I'm making sure also that I am of interest, that what we're talking about is of interest. To me, it's like creating a little bit of magic in that learning space. I like to diversify so that you're playing around with lots of things, whether it's a chance for someone to read, for you to read, for you to fill out a personal reflection, for you to share verbally, for us to have a discussion, for us to use annotations. I try to mix it up so that it's not lecture style or it's not me sitting down and like, can't wait till the class is done. But I'm not going to give you all my...
You want to hold on to, keep some secrets in the closet if you like, right?
No, yeah, the reality is I'm happy to share. Well, you got to experience one of my classes and then you'll learn my secrets. That's probably the best way to do it.
That's right. You heard it here. Check out Candace Singh and grab her tools for wellness education consultation. What are some of the things that you see within the wellness education space that, I guess what I'm trying to get to is, why would someone seek out facilitation within a wellness education space?
Okay, so how much time do you have? I'm just kidding.
What are they getting where they can't get at a paid college or a paid university?
Yes, I have to share some good news, some bad news, some so-so news, and some bright news at the end.
Yeah.
I think it's quite clear that the mental health space is lacking a lot of support. I know that I can say today.
So when you say the mental health space is lacking support, are you anything specific that you're comfortable talking about?
Yeah, I think as a person that's experiencing mental health concerns for the first time, it can be a really scary space, right? So our system is still quite biological or it's still quite medicalized, where you often need to reach a crisis state. I'm using the word crisis, but it looks different for everyone. It doesn't mean that you need to be experiencing suicidality. Maybe your crisis is you've gotten into an accident and you don't remember certain things, or maybe you're experiencing age-related issues. These are huge changes. So I'll say when I use the word crisis, I'm using like huge, uncomfortable changes. Okay, so so when you're experiencing huge, uncomfortable changes or crisis, and you're looking for support, you'll notice that sometimes our family doctors aren't well equipped to answer certain questions. They'll make a referral to a psychiatrist, they'll make a referral to maybe a psychologist. And we know that psychotherapy can be a little bit hard. I can speak for this year right now, can be a little bit hard to access consistently, because there's not a ton of psychotherapy is also, you're looking for a good fit, right? So you have to go through and try on the different psychotherapists before you find your good fit. So in a crisis state, I don't know if you're thinking, let's find a good fit right now. That's a long-term change. So yeah, we're lacking some supports. And I think my role as a mental health educator, I get a chance to supplement it. There is a need in the world, and how do I gently fit in a way that is approachable and less scary? You get a chance to ask questions. You can come see me privately. These are the kinds of things that I appreciate about it. So education, if you want to look at it from the literal sense, always learning helps you to promote mental health and wellness. Using your brain is going to help you to promote mental health and wellness. Now, if I add a twist on it and say, why don't we use our brains to learn about mental health and wellness? That's even doubly effective, right? So we're starting to explore different topics in mental health. I get a chance to hear what people are experiencing. People can share the resources that they're accessing. I'm really filling a gap. So yes, I'm not going to replace your family doctor, your psychiatrist, or your medication, but we're adding additional resources so that the crisis doesn't feel so uncomfortable.
Sounds like maybe this is a good stepping stone for, like, there's wait lists in Canada for psychiatrists.
Yeah.
Psychologists tend to be paid by the hour, by the session. You can find sliding scale psychologists, which are extremely beneficial. It sounds like finding a wellness education space can bridge that gap of learning how to be well while waiting for the referral to come through. Am I right?
Yeah. So I have a saying, too many hands in the pot is a good thing in this case. I think when it comes to mental health or any health issue, there's times where I'm thinking we don't even need to separate mental health from overall health and wellness. Our brains are not separate from the rest of our bodies. We're all attached.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so I think in this case, it's getting all the resources possible to make sure that we stay well and feel good. Our world is very caught up with productivity and how to get people back to being productive. But we do so sometimes with too quick of a change, and it's not sustainable. So yeah, okay, maybe this medication might help you in this moment, or hospitalizing you for the next couple of days is going to help you in this moment. Not a bad thing. I think those are great things. But what's going to keep you well long term? Let's add additional resources. So
Right.
that's where I'm at. There's no one place to start or one size fits all. To me, try everything. Learn as much as you can. You can Google things, but Googling stuff is very different from experiencing a group of real people that are sitting in the room with you or sitting online with you in that time and space, sharing, hey, yesterday I had a panic attack. Yesterday, I ended up going to the hospital, sharing an experience and then sharing what they did and navigating like these. It doesn't have to be a secret world. It's about connecting with one another.
Yeah. Why are you so passionate about what we do?
Can you tell I'm passionate? How do you know I'm passionate? I'm passionate about it because I see it working, and I'm passionate about it because I can feel it working for me too. I am an anxious person, and I feel like I don't necessarily suffer with anxiety because I don't find that I suffer with it. I feel much more comfortable now that I'm realizing that there's so many people experiencing this, and I'm not weird. Because to me, being weird or different or being on the outside and that imposter syndrome in every sort of situation that you go into, that was damaging before. Whereas now I get to create a space where people can talk about things, and I see the change in people. I see someone come in, see me and hear about things that I've had conversations with workplaces. I've had conferences that I've done like really big talks, and I see the change when I'm asking questions in a gentle but blunt way. What are you doing to change this? Or what are you doing to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And, I see sometimes confused faces. And that to me is an opportunity to explore what we can do. I'm not going to leave you hanging. Let's explore what we can do. I do see a lot of, the more I talk about it, the more I realize people are in need of support, specifically in the mental health space. I think education can help with a lot of things. Education is going to change the game when it comes to how we manage our mental health and wellness and how we handle our overall health and wellness and our existence, even for that matter.
I could not agree with you more. That's why I started this podcast. That's why I started this company. And that's why I had you on as a guest. Because ultimately, wellness education changed my life. It helped me with all the classes and courses that I learned within that wellness education space. It helped me slowly understand that I had a lot more power than I thought I had, which is something my psychologist was telling me. You have more power than you think you do, Jamie. And I was able to slowly understand that I can actually manage my depression and my anxiety instead of being afraid that it's coming. It's only with that knowledge that I'm able to say, okay, I need a 2-day break. Otherwise, I'm going to be in the passenger seat for 6 months. But it's with that wellness education that I learned how to manage my health, my mental health. And I cannot promote these spaces enough. We do need more. If somebody wanted to be an adult educator, what are some of the most important emotional qualities that they would need to start practicing? I can tell you one thing that comes through in this interview is your empathy. You have to be able to constantly renew it.
Yeah. That's a good question, Jamie. One key quality I appreciate in educators is perspective taking. It's like taking a step back to observe somebody as fully capable. I never claim to be a knowledge keeper in my education space or my classroom space, whatever the space is, my talk, my conference. I like to throw it back at the group. What have you experienced or what are you doing? And I think that automatically gives me the opportunity to take perspective, right? Maybe I can or cannot relate to certain things, but now I have the opportunity to hear another story and get that perspective. And that's going to fuel my empathy because now I understand, oh, that must have been really hard for you. And I can genuinely say it and feel it and then ask, hey, can anyone else relate to this? Have you felt something similar? And look at that, a conversation has started, right? So yeah, definitely empathy. But I think beyond empathy is the perspective taking. And then to get to that, it's just releasing control of or the idea that educator is the knowledge keeper. It's not about controlling the space. Yes, you maintain it, maintain the safety and stuff like that, but you're not in ownership of it. The students are.
Candace, this has been such a delightful experience. Where is the best place to find you? Especially if you're interested in the wellness education space.
Yeah, message me on LinkedIn. I think that's the best way to do it. I'm happy and open to share some tips and tricks or connections even. Come find me on LinkedIn, see what I'm up to, and reach out. I am happy to be a resource in any way that I can.
That's great. So we'll plug your LinkedIn account in the notes below. I just want to say, Candace, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to know you. You have definitely improved my life with the things I've learned from you, as well as just your knowledge and your empathy is really, really, it's inspiring. So I want to say thank you. And to our audience, listen, there's ways out and you don't need to leave. Just hang in there, find these wellness education spaces, find the mental health resources within your area, call 988 or 911 or your regional equivalent. Stay with us because we need you. You just don't know that you're needed yet. But I promise you, when you do the work and you find the wellness education that you need, if you look into the Trine framework, that's exactly how I manage my life. And if you can look into that, look into therapists, look into correct medication, you'll find your way to be the person that you want to be. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you. And thank you, Candace Singh, for enlightening us with your information and your education and your facilitation.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for watching. We want to acknowledge that everyone involved in this project including the music, which was composed by Mike Jukes, has been touched by the effects of mental health. This series is dedicated to promoting mental health education and awareness. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts on mental health education in the comments below, and subscribe if you would like to be notified regarding our next wellness education video. Thanks for being our friends, and thanks for being awesome.